Welcome to the Angler's Wisdom Podcast,
supercharged by Amped Outdoors Lithium.
Today, anglers fish longer. Today, anglers fish harder. Today, anglers rely more than ever on their electronics. It all comes down to catching more fish, and today, anglers rely on Amped Outdoors lithium batteries, period.
catch more fish,
Learn tips, tricks,
techniques, and secrets, and decades of angler's wisdom. Welcome to the show.
Oh, yeah! Yeah! Oh! Oh, that's a nice one. Yeah!
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Angler's Wisdom Podcast, where fishing is life, but safety comes first. I'm your host, Chuck Earls, and I'm really fired up for this episode. Whether you're joining us live or catching the replay, you're in for a treat. Because today's guest brings some serious wisdom to the Angler's Wisdom Podcast. We've got an incredible conversation lined up, packed with real stories, expert insights, and the kind of tips you won't hear anywhere else. So grab your coffee, drop your questions in the chat, and get ready to learn from one of the best in the game. Let's give a warm welcome to Captain Juls, Julia Davis from Juls Walleye Fishing Adventures. Captain Juls is known for empowering women anglers and making waves in the Great Lakes fishing scene. Juls, welcome to the show. It's an honor to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So before we went live, you had mentioned that you were getting your new boat all ready for walleye guiding season.
Yeah, I just picked it up on Monday, brought it home, gassed it up yesterday, and we all love that first 60-gallon tank, right?
Right.
Got it washed up. So today was the day I was going to put all the equipment back in it, like I had in the other boat, and went through all my offshore boards and changed out the foam, and some of the releases, so they're brand new, basically. And just putting all that in. And like I told you, I had to set my alarm to remind me of this because I would have totally forgotten, just kept working. I still have about, I'd say, 50 crankbait boxes to put away.
It's always something, especially in the fishing and guiding industry. Usually the schedule is so jam-packed, if you don't set yourself reminders and timers and stuff like that, it's pretty easy to look up and be an hour late.
And I'm just getting old. I forget.
Well, we'll pretend we didn't hear that one. But no, with age comes wisdom. So I look at things like that, that's a good thing. So you've had quite a journey in the fishing world. Can you share what first hooked you on fishing at just 4 years old?
Yeah, my family, I have 4 siblings and, my parents, and then we'd always do a 2-week camping trip every summer. And my dad was working for Outboard Marine, so Evinrude. And I remember it's my earliest memory of fishing. I was 4 years old, and we had gone up to Big Mackenzie Lake in Spooner, Wisconsin. And we were staying in cottages, which was a real treat because we'd always been camping in tents and, waking up in puddles and things like that. But this was a cabin, and all our cousins were coming too. And so we had a whole row of cabins, and across the street was a lake, and there was some tee docks. Oh, there's my cute little fish. Some tee docks. And so my dad had tied a line to a stick, showed my twin brother and I how to find clams in the sand on the shoreline, and then open them up, and don't use your teeth. Open them up and get the meat out, and then stick it on the hook and put us out on the end of the pier and we would just catch one after the other as long as we had some meat on the hook. So that was my first fish, my first memory of it. And I did a lot of fishing with my dad, just bass, northern, bluegill, crappie, just a mix of fish. The walleye stuff didn't start until uh, mid to late 20s, I think, where we go up to Lake Winnebago and camp every weekend. And that was just drip casting, crawler harnesses or jigs. It's a little Roadrunner. Is that the one with the little blade on it? That was a good one.
The weight forward spinner.
Yeah, I think so. Little guy.
I know there was a couple. I'm not familiar with the Roadrunner. I know the like the Erie Dearies and then like the tiny teasers. There was a lot of unique ones that kind of have
These would have been like Winnebago baits, not out here.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So I didn't move down here until 2001. I had first come down here in 1999. I was invited to do some fall fishing out of Huron. And so that was a year where almost every fish that came up, I remember it was December 6th. It was 60 degrees and there was a 5-mile-an-hour south wind and a full moon. And every fish that came up, my goodness, it had to be 8 to 11 pounds with that mouth on it coming in back to the boat like that. You could stick a grapefruit in it. And so, I was thrilled with that. So when I was here, I didn't want to go home. And when I was home, I wanted to be here. So long story short, I left my boyfriend of 10 years, quit my job, sold my house, and moved.
It's you can laugh about that, but anybody that lives here, we've seen that so many times, right? Where somebody comes and they experience this this fishery for the first time, and Lake Erie doesn't ever let them leave.
Yeah. Some want to come, but they don't do it. I did it. I'm glad I did it, but I miss my family. They're all back in Wisconsin.
Well, at least it's probably maybe an 8-hour drive or something.
It's only 6.5. Yeah, I can do that. But then let's see, where were we?
I think after that you started getting into the tournament fishing, right, with the professional walleye tournament anglers.
I started like everybody else. I started on the co-angler side, and some local team events back on, in Wisconsin. I think there's USFA, the MWC, team stuff. And, what's funny is I really didn't know walleye tournaments existed until we were camping out on a little point on Lake Winnebago's west side, and it was about 7 a.m. And I hear this noise coming down the lake. I look out my little window and see these boats flying across. I'm like, what is going on? Because I had never seen a takeoff like that. And I think that was the Merck National going on. And found out what it was, went to the weigh-in. I thought, this is all pretty cool. And went home. I was working a job where I have an associate degree in printing and publishing, and I was working at Ryman Publications at the time. And so I was working 3 12s on and then 4 days off. So I had the time to go up and go fishing and do stuff like that. So anyway, another long story short, I found WalleyeCentral.com, and back then there used to be a chat room where all the PWT pros were going in there, and the FLW wasn't around at the time yet. I think the RCL, when did that start? I forget when the RCL started, but that was the first one. 2001, I think, was the first pro event that I fished, and Bruce DeShano of Offshore Tackle let me borrow his 620. It was a 1999 620. Still had the gas tank up in the front, so it was real nose heavy. and
but that was what?
it wasn't dry. In Saginaw Bay, I think, might have been the first one. I don't know. It's so long ago. I've been fishing professionally for 25 years, and now this will be my 14th year guiding on Lake Erie. So
wow.
I don't know how many secrets I have. I mean, I fish just like everybody else, and if anybody's paid any attention, I mean, basically it's all the same.
Well, in general, the big picture, it looks all the same, but you and I know it's the intricate details that really make the difference when the fishing gets really tough.
Yeah, if you're out there,
everybody does things a little bit different, and
you're putting the puzzle together as your morning progresses. Each day is different. I don't care what they say, Yeah, there's certain days where it's stable for like 3 days, and you could basically go back out to the same spot every day and, might do well. But walleye move. They move a lot. And unless the conditions stay how they want them, they're going to move. And so that's when you have to go find them. And that's when the electronics come in and help you. And if you can have your electronics dialed in so that you can read fish while you're on plane at 35, 40 miles an hour, just little pin dots, just so you know what you're looking at, so that you can say, oh, what was that? I'm going to slow down and go back over that and see what that is.
Exactly.
If you don't have the electronics dialed in, that's going to be rough. If you can't read fish on plane.
Yeah, I agree. Back to the tournament side of things. What was it like for you, along that tournament journey? And are there any major highlights or hard lessons that you learned?
Actually, it was just a lot of fun. I mean, it was a lot of work. It's not a glamorous thing, like people think, oh, you're on the road and you're fishing all these different places. But, in the beginning, it was also sponsored by Crown Royal. So we had to go in and do promotions. It's kind of like that, because it was done at bars. So we'd go in a week before the tournament, and we'd have to do like 1 or 2 promotions in these bars late at night. So I think it was 3 days. So we'd go in with a fighting chair and then a computer with a line coming out of it that you had a fishing pole. So you'd have a big TV screen there. You've seen them at sports shows where you're fighting a fish or a salmon, So it starts out good, but then by midnight when people are drunk, then it's like, oh God, get me out of here. And I gotta fish in the morning. I gotta go pre-fishing.
Right.
So that was hard. So it was not glamorous, but a lot of fun, a lot of experiences. Got to fish all these places across the country. The rivers were my favorite because I got to hand line. I love hand lining. Don't really do that much anymore.
So I know when I first got into the Lake Erie Walleye Trail, my full intentions, I mean, I was competing in a kayak against the boats because, there was no kayak division, but I wanted to put myself in that extreme pressurous situation because that's where I'm going to learn the most, right? And, the funny thing is one of the most valuable and one of the first lessons I learned was something that I had never thought about before I got in. And that really was the logistics of everything, and after I learned that, I'd sit here in front of the Navionics map and I'd map everything out and measure my distance and calculate, okay, well, I have this much battery capacity. How can I do this, this big circle and make it back to the weigh-in on time, and hopefully with a little bit of time to spare. So are there any lessons that you can think of that like that kind of changed the way that you looked at tournament fishing?
No, not really. You just got to make it back in time, and you just have to watch the clock and know how far away you are and how long it's going to take you. If it gets rough, if you got to know the weather. You can go out in the morning and it's glass, and then that happened at Saginaw Bay. That one tournament, it was beautiful going out, and then it went to 3 to 5s, maybe even 4 to 6s coming back in, and I think. How far out was I? What is it from? Is it Bay City out to the Charity Island?
Oh, okay.
How far is that? Do you know?
I can pull it up.
16. That's not a big deal. But going, luckily we had gotten our fish early, by 11, so we had lots of time to get back.
If I had to guess, I'd say you were probably 10, 15 miles.
Yeah.
Something like that. So after acing your Coast Guard captain's exam, you said you'd been guiding for 14 years. What is the most? Oh, this will be 14 years. So what is the most rewarding part of helping others get on fish?
Just the smiles, the laughs, and them having fun, and them, seeing them fishing either with their family members or just with friends that they've fished with for a very long time. I take small crews. I only take up to 3 people, so you get more one-on-one with all of them. But yeah, it's the fish is secondary. Even
100%.
to most people that get in the boat, they just want to go out and have fun. And keeping it fun is important. And there are those days where it's super tough, and you're just like, oh my God, please, please, please. And they've got a positive attitude, and it just helps you, keep working and hopefully get more fish.
I remember how stressed out I would get when the fishing got super tough, and like the clock's ticking. I give 6 hours on the water. We're in hour 4 or hour 5, and I'm like pulling my hair out, throwing everything but the kitchen sink at them. And at some point I realized, I'm like, this client, the amount of knowledge and like actually dialing in that type of situation, like that kind of trip is so much more valuable than just going out and having, a fire drill where like doesn't matter what you put on there, they're catching, and that's fun too. But what I do, I mean, I'm not necessarily going to have the same people coming out every year for 20 years because they get their own vessel, they're coming out for skills, and they go do their own thing.
I get a lot of those.
But it's so rewarding.
Yeah. Aren't you afraid you're going to get run over being out there in the kayak?
No, because one of the things that I teach out there, obviously, is situational awareness, and that's not just vessels; it's also the weather. So I teach these people, before we even leave the harbor. First of all, you leave the harbor, you got to stay on the right. You don't know if anybody's going to flip around. I mean, there's a lot of experienced people out there. There's a lot of inexperienced people. And also coming out of there, you don't know if there's a jet ski, running full speed up and down. So keep your ears open, listen for motor noises, and slowly come out. And, while you're on the water, you're constantly keeping your head on a swivel. Obviously you're looking at one of your 2 poles, but you're looking around and, again, keeping your ears open. So you're looking for any kind of moving, any kind of boat. And generally you'll see the wake before you see the boat. And a lot of times, depending on the boat, I'll hear them, but some of these are really quiet. But you'll see this, this big white wake line before you'll even see the boat. So I can generally see boats 10 miles away, as long as they're not coming, like from a blind spot.
Yeah.
And then I identify those boats, and I make a judgment call of where I think their heading is going, and also my location, because just because he looks like he's going to the islands and I'm sitting in front of the ramp, that doesn't mean he's going to look up and say, oh shit, and whip in, so I assess the situation, and then I just adjust my location so that by the time he sees me or she sees me, I'm nowhere near them, so like keeps everybody safe. And at the end of the day, we technically have the right of way by law, but you can't argue a right of way when you're dead. So it's our job to stay out of the way. And on top of that, obviously like high vis clothes, and the tall, bright high vis flag. And you want to make sure it's tall, because when you get down in that trough, it's going to be tough to see if it's not sticking above it. And it's, if you think about it, like when you're driving down the road, you're focused on the road because anything can happen at any time, right? Well, the road's only 2 lanes wide. When you're on a boat and you're going, say 40 mile an hour, you're scanning this vast body of water. You're only looking in that direction for a split second.
Yeah.
And that's just enough time for that person to be hidden. So staying highly visible and most importantly, staying out of everybody's way and being respectful, set up off to the side,
How
drop
fast
down
is
in the
that
ramp.
boat scoot?
What's that?
How fast does that little boat scoot?
With mine, the way that I have it set up and all the weight I have on there, I do about 6 miles an hour. Might drop down to like 5.8 if I have a headwind or some waves or something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it doesn't go super fast, but it goes fast enough to tournament day I'll cover 30, 40 miles depending on where I'm going.
Wow. So I'm switching electronics. I'm going from Humminbird to Garmin, so that's going to be a learning curve.
You're gonna absolutely love it.
In a little picture.
Yeah, you're gonna absolutely love it. I remember when I first got my Garmin 93 SV, I was switching from a Lowrance Hook 2.5, so real watered down. And when I realized that the Hook 2.5, the navigation on it and the compass wasn't really good, and I fish offshore, I realized, okay, that's a problem, right? And I also wanted to add side scan and all that stuff. So I picked up a used 93 SV that had been actually on Jason Fisher's boat from the Lake Erie Walleye Trail for like 6 months, and fell in love with it. Saving waypoints, I mean, keeping the data and just doing practically anything is a touch of a button. It's not like, I mean, Hummingbird's great, but one thing that drives me nuts is like, oh man, I passed the screen up. Okay, hit the button to rotate back, like on the Helix series.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you'll really love that Garmin. What size was that?
Got the Echo Map Ultra 2 126.
Okay, nice.
Right.
So it's what, 12-inch?
I think, yeah. Yeah, I've got one right over there. I took the one off the back, so it's not outside right now.
Right.
It's 12-inch.
So what are some common mistakes new anglers make when trolling for walleye, and how can they improve their game?
Common mistakes. Well, I always say organization is the key to success. So, just being organized and just having a little common sense when you're putting the stuff out, so that you picture where the lines are and where the baits are at any given time, so that you're not letting this one out and this one out, and there's a current sending the other one into the other one. So just simple stuff.
Yep.
The OR16, that red release that everybody knows on the offshore tackle boards, there's a pin in the center, and the biggest mistake is, I'll say, did you get the line behind the pin? Oh, sure I did.
So there goes the board.
Let the front out. There goes the board. Okay, we're switching to the snapper on the back now.
Right.
So when you find a little problem, you just find a solution to a problem and make your life easier and better. So like they say, work smarter, not harder.
Yep. And that's that goes with everything. And one of the cool things about what you do is people can book a trip with you and they can come out and get a true crash course on running planer boards and learn what they don't know, because there's a lot of things that you learn along the way where you don't realize things until it's blatantly obvious, and that could be 2 years down the road, or who knows.
I get a lot of people that want to learn how to troll with the boards, and in 6 hours I can have you doing it all by yourself. You can do it on your boat, the next day, and do just fine. So
yeah,
I'm usually talking through it the entire time, and they've
Right.
got a lot of questions. So it's like an on the water seminar every day.
that's a lot of fun. And like you said, sorry, go ahead.
Most people are there to learn. Every now and then you get a trip where they just want to have fun. So if that's the case, then I'll do all the work. I'll ask them, do you have a boat? If they don't have a boat, I'll say, well, do you want to learn how to do this and help me set boards out? And if they hesitate, I'll say, and that's fine. If you don't want to, you can just sit there and, and I'll put them all out for you.
Right. You don't have to do any work.
I'd say 80 to 85% people are doing it. They're helping. They want to
Yeah.
learn how to do it.
And even the people that don't want to buy a boat, that's what I've noticed. That's what my clients really love, is the opportunity to learn something new and, expand their angler's wisdom.
Mhm.
So, as far as Dipsies, when is the best time to use Dipsies? What's that?
I love Dipsies. They're so easy. Typically, I always say as soon as the water hits 50 degrees, you can start running crawler harnesses. 60 degrees, at 50 degrees, you could probably start with Dipsies. You could try it. But 60 degrees for sure. I don't like to go any slower than 1.8 mile an hour with the Dipsy, but I do prefer to do 2 to 2.5.
Right.
In the summer when it gets warm, anywhere from again 2.4 to 3 mile an
Right.
hour. But you can run. They're great. It takes 30
Yeah.
seconds to put one out. They're easy to bring in, but I do tell my customers, because I'll see them, they get the rod and pop the Dipsy, and then they got it up in the air like you do with the board rod, and I'll tell them, put that rod tip right down in the water. Keep that Dipsy in the water as long as possible, because as soon as that Dipsy comes out, because they're doing this, so that Dipsy
Right.
is doing this, and that's gonna throw your hook more likely.
Yep.
If that
Yeah.
Dipsy's in the water right till you get right up to the rod tip, then all you got to do is lift and back up one step. Fish is in the net. So that's helped.
Yeah, that's super important. Even with snap weights, you don't want anything out of the water swinging around, giving the fish an opportunity to pull that hook out.
Yeah. Snap weights aren't as bad. They're smaller. What was I going to say? Oh yeah. So with Dipsies, you're able to run spoons, shallow crankbaits, some deep divers, as long as they're itty bitties, like that boogie shad or shaky shad. And,
Worm harnesses, stuff
worm
like that.
harnesses. What's that one? Worm burner, where it's
Oh
a
yeah.
spoon and a crawler harness.
Yeah, I love those ones. And I always think about it, like, if you really look at that lure, it's just like adding scent. Why do you add scent? Well, because it takes the fishing maybe is tough, and you need that little extra. Well, it's just like us. If we see a porterhouse or your favorite food out on the other side of the room, your mouth starts drooling, and you run over there and you're like, wait a minute, it doesn't look right. It doesn't look what I've seen, from a distance. So you start second guessing it, right? But if you run over there and before you even get up close, you start smelling it, it's just intensifying. You're not even going to think about it. You're going to come in and smack it. Of course, some days it doesn't matter, but some days just that little bit of scent, or throw a worm burner on with a little night crawler on there, and it's fire drill. One thing I do before the water temperature gets warm enough to run fast with Dipsies and true trips is I'll transition to like bottom bouncers and stuff like that, and just drift, or I'll even troll with inline weight, and a worm harness.
I know during if I don't have to fish with crawlers, I'm just not going to.
Yeah.
They're messy. Customers will drop a piece on the floor and step on it. Yeah. I just don't like cleaning the boat as much anymore.
Have you?
And if you don't
tried,
have to, go ahead.
Have you tried those Berkeley worms, the replacement plastic worms?
No. I tried some
They
years ago.
work. I think they're Gulp. I should have grabbed one, but they actually work really good.
Okay.
There are times, of course, where they won't work at all, but there's times where it'll work better than a real worm. So, especially when it gets real hot out and you don't know if you're going to need the crawlers, the worms, and if you buy them, and for me, I'm limited on space, by the end of the day, that's just wasted money.
Yeah.
So I'll carry the Berkeley Gulp. They make two different sizes, like a 4-inch and I think an 8-inch. So depending on how you like it, or if you want to use it on a casting or something like that.
Yeah.
And it just works good, and you don't have to worry about all that mess.
And you have the confidence in that. So that's something I wouldn't have the confidence in, because if I'm going to turn to crawlers, it's because the bite is really tough.
Right.
And what's going to help a tough bite? A real crawler.
Right.
So,
well, I will say I probably wouldn't have had the confidence in that if it wasn't for the guys over at Trollco, because we were out fishing one day, and he pulled them out. He's like, "Hey, did you see these?" And I'm like, "No. What the hell are you going to do with those?" And we crushed it. So I immediately got some, but that's one thing when it comes to fishing, right? You see something and you're like, no, that won't work. Sometimes we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot.
What worm is that? What scent? You said it was gulp.
Yeah.
I might try it.
Well, I'll pull it up and send you a link to it.
Okay. Can't hurt just to keep some on the boat.
Yeah. Or even to play with,
I should have brought crawlers and.
Yeah. So for somebody that's looking to get into trolling, what's one piece of must-have gear that makes a huge difference for them? Because it's kind of intimidating when you look at like getting into walleye fishing and all the different aspects and dipsies and snap weights and inlines and like, where would you direct them first?
Certainly using all the same rod and reel. I would put more money in the reel than in the rod. I've been using Shakespeare ugly sticks for 24 years, and I'm not going to stop using them because they're affordable. I think they're less than $50 a piece. They used to be, $25, $30, but everything's gone up.
Right.
$50 on those, and I think the Shimano Dakota 500s, those are $220, something like that.
Yeah.
200
and
at least.
That's smart, because with trolling, I mean, the reel's doing all the work. The rod is technically just a meat stick. You don't need sensitivity or any kind of like special stuff.
Yeah, I needed rods that you couldn't, customers couldn't break either. So Shakespeare's the way to go.
Yeah, the better the rod, the more sensitive the more delicate it gets, and nothing breaks your heart like breaking a $400 fishing rod.
Right.
At least a friend told me. Oh man.
Yeah. What was the original question?
One piece of must-have gear that makes a huge difference when trolling.
When trolling. For me, it would have to be the bow mount trolling motor, just because it has the autopilot on it. So It's like having somebody else in the boat driving for you, so that I can net fish, I can set rods, and all I got to do is have a swivel on my head to watch for other boaters, because as you know, some people have the right of way and some don't, and it's nice.
That's
rules, but not everybody knows those rules.
That's an important point, and I would have to agree with you. Just being somebody that's been on both styles, where the boat just has a kicker motor, or where the boat has a kicker motor and then a bow mount to keep the bow straight. On inland lakes, it probably doesn't matter so much, but on Lake Erie, without that bow mount, your bow is constantly going like this. It doesn't matter what the kicker motor is doing, but you constantly have to have somebody driving or compensating. If not, you're twisting up, and that's no fun.
That's one thing.
So we already talked about what your electronics setup that you're going to be running this year. How do you what factors do you use on that to help you get dialed in the fish? And to add to that, is there like a preferred way that you like to collect and organize your data as far as like a fishing log or something like that?
I have my blog, and but I don't do a fishing log like some people do with full moon and temperature and this. I do all the temperature and the lake temperature and stuff in my reports. Um, I do that for people that can only fish the weekends and are coming in, and they just
Yep.
need a program to start with. It's like I'll give them some information. I may not tell them exactly where I am, but I'm giving them a general direction, like east of Kelly's or towards
Right.
Vermilion or Huron or west of the islands. Just an idea. Um, I'm certainly not going to give you waypoints so you end up on top of me, but
Right.
once it starts getting crowded, then I move and go find another spot, and there's fish all over the place. So basically, just launch your boat. Start if you start marking fish close, go ahead and start fishing them. You don't have to go 10 miles out to that pack that's out by Niagara.
Right.
You fish down inside if there's fish there. So just believe your electronics. Like I said, if you can mark them when you're on plane, so you can stop and then see, what it is you were marking, thought you were marking. Um, and if you find them, just start fishing them. If they're in the middle of the water column, that's going to be fun because those are going to be really active fish. You can fish high in the water column above them or, just above them and hopefully start catching. In the springtime, you're going to want that mixing water because too muddy, they're not going to see it. Too clean, it's a little too chilly yet. That mixing water is warm and they can see the baits. And especially if you use a scent like Procure, not sponsored by them, but used it and it works. If you can do that, if you can mark fish in the mixing water and have a bait they want, in the springtime, you're looking at P10s, deep husky jerk 12s, maybe even a 14, depends.
What
What
about
else?
waypoints?
And
Do
it's
you?
waypoints. I used to bother with them. I still do. I'll hit mark, go through the season, and then the next year I'll just wipe them all clean. I don't.
Really?
I don't fish memories.
Well,
Like I said, it's always changing. In fact, we've got that walleye migration video that was done in 2016, right?
right. And I'm
And
sure
that,
it's totally different now at this point.
and I'm thinking, just from my own experience of what I'm seeing, that a sneeze, bless you. Um, what I think is happening now, they're not going that South Passage as much as they used to years ago, like early 2000s to even up until like 2015, 16. I think more of them, get a ton of them down west. And then as they come, they're taking that north, going through Canada, which they don't know. There's Canadian netters up there, so they'd be smart to stay on the American side.
Right.
Uh, but they don't. But I think that's what's happening because we're seeing fewer and fewer fish down inside, like at the end of March into April. Coming from Davis Bessie and that taking that turn through Port Clinton and then going back out through Catawba and making that right turn and taking
Right.
the South Passage. Still got some in the Middle Passage, but there's a lot more on the north side, I think. So I'd really like to see a new video done with those fish with the transponders just to see if my gut instinct is correct.
I agree. I would love to see that.
I guess that's such a big task to do because you've got Canada and New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan. Everybody's got to get in on that.
Right. And that might be a little challenging now, especially
Let's not go there.
yeah. So sorry guys. I was writing down a note because I wanted to remind myself to do some research and see if, I don't know, maybe I can figure out or talk to somebody that can figure out what's causing that. Like, why are they not taking the South Passage as much anymore? But that's a subject for a future podcast. So when the walleye disappear, where's the first place that you look?
What do you mean disappear?
Like when, maybe all of a sudden the bite shuts off, or, you go out the next day and the walleye are not where they're supposed to be.
All right, well, first thing I question is what was the wind direction the night before? Because your currents are going to change. Your surface current and your undercurrent, they're going to change with wind direction. I've got these cute little charts that kind of tell me which way the currents are going to go and how they come around the islands and things like that. So if you think of Lake Erie like a big river, and the Lake Erie Islands are, islands in the river, you're going to have eddies coming around those tips. Yeah, coming around the tips. I'm just going to go point on your map.
Oh, sorry.
I know. I can't point to your map on my computer.
Oh, yeah. But you can share your screen if you like. But
Oh, no, I don't know how to do all that. Usually I have a piece of black tape over my camera. So this is like the first little Zoom thing I've ever done.
that's a good thing to do, and I do the same. I have a cloth that I put over this camera, and then I have a piece of tape on the computer camera because, at the end of the day with hackers and stuff like that, you never know.
Right.
It's just smart to do. Too bad we can't do it to our phones, right?
Right.
So when the bite is tough, what's your process to dial them in? And how do you adjust your approach to find success when the fish aren't cooperating?
That's when you want the crawlers, when they're being moody like that. Just slow it down. I hate, I got to tell you, I hate fishing during a full moon, because if it's clear skies at night, they're going to be feeding heavily at night. And then, I get out there early enough. I get that first early morning, that first pass will get some fish. And then as the morning progresses, it just dies off real quick. And that's when it gets tough. And you're just like, ugh. So sometimes it's just tough. You just, no.
That's why they call it fishing and not catching, right? And I always on a tough day like that, I always just think, how much would it suck if we caught amazing amounts of fish every day? I mean, we get bored eventually, and we wouldn't go back. So we need those bad days.
Unfortunately, the customer who's paying for that day is probably not thinking the same, but I've never really had anyone complain, and I let them know.
I mean, generally, like, it's extremely rare to get.
I know when all the full moons are because I'll put them on the calendar before I schedule. And when somebody's scheduling and they're asking for dates and they give me a date on a full moon, and I'll explain to them it's on a full moon. I just want you to realize that, a lot of people will tell you, oh, fishing during the full moon's the best ever. And yeah, maybe at night, but morning, during the day, no, they fed at night. If it's cloudy, you might have a chance, because it stayed dark. But when that bright moon is shining down on the lake and they can see
oh yeah,
the shiners, they're gonna fill up. And it's hard to catch a fish that's got a full belly.
Speaking of that, how do you adapt to the bug hatch?
That is my little secret. That is a crawler harness. I've got one. I use root beer colored beads and then a number 5 hatchet blade, gold hammered hatchet. And it just looks like a mayfly. So usually that one, and then one that I call the Perch. Crawler harnesses that I make.
And are you changing your target depth?
It all depends on where I'm seeing the fish on the electronics. If they're holding at 12 to 15 feet, I'm going to put it at 10 feet, 12 feet. I usually have starting numbers like a 1 ounce at 40 back, 2 ounce at 50, 60 back, or, anywhere 35 to 60 back. And I start with that. And then I just start dialing things in as we're catching fish, and I may end up with a whole spread of everything the same, you know,
Right.
2 ounces at 50 back. And if that's what they want, that's what they get. So
Right.
that's where the piece of the puzzle comes in. Every fish you catch, you have to pay attention to the details. What was it on a turn? Was it the fast side? Was it the slow side? You know, how fast was I going? So as soon as a fish hits, I'm going to look at the speed, just for a mental note, and then all the other little details as it's coming in, and then reset.
Yep.
If it does it again, then I'll take up another rod and reset a couple more to that depth. So hopefully it always works, but it doesn't always work. It's just life.
Well, it's one of those things, you either win or you learn, right?
Hmm. Always learning.
So you've had a lifetime of fishing adventures, but your sunrise trips with your dad seem to stand out the most. Can you share what made those moments so special? And is there any trip in particular you could pick out that you would say is the ultimate one that you remember the most or means the most to you?
It would be when I lost my dad back in 2021. And they had a house on Rome Pond, which was a embankment of the Bark River. So it was, I think, 3,400 acres. Bluegill, northern. Every now and then you could find some perch in there, but mostly bluegill, bass, and northern. And I would go. I was living in the city. I was going to school, and they were coming up from Illinois because this was a retirement home that they had bought real cheap. And then so they gutted it and were remodeling things. And so I'd come out on the weekends and help. And so one of the treats was Dad and I would get up before sunrise, or right, half hour before the sun would come up. And then we'd head out in the canoe with fly rods or a casting rod. And he would paddle me around. And I had this, I think it was a number 9 blue and white jointed number 7 floating Rapala. And so I would just grab that one. I had one lure, and that's what I would cast out the front of the boat while he was paddling us around. And it was big mats of lily pads or that floating duckweed,
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about. And you just throw the lure right to the edge of it and catch bass, northern. And so those were always special to me because it was quiet time with my dad and, listening to the sounds of nature while the sun was coming up and having a cup of coffee. Yeah. When I think of fishing, that's the memory I have. The rest of this is
It's
fishing.
bonus. Yeah.
But,
So you were talking about a stormy day at Meadow Lake Lodge.
Mita Lake Lodge? Yep.
Or is it Mita?
Yeah. That was, I think, the first of 6 trips up there. Might have been the second trip. Nope, it was the first trip, I remember.
So what was going through your mind as the waves built up and the lightning struck around you?
Well, if I die, it's a pretty place to die. That's all I could think of. I wasn't driving, and I was sitting on the the seat up in the front of the bow. And so when the lightning bolts are coming down close to us, I jumped on the floor, and that put him higher than me. And he's like, "Get back in your seat. I can't die. I'm driving the boat."
Oh man.
I got back in the seat. We made it back, but yeah, it was pretty dicey. That was one of those instances where this is my sister's quote where she says, "A woman's voice to a man's ears means we get ignored." Yeah, because we had been fishing down on Arrow Lake at the south end, so it was probably a half-hour drive back to the lodge, which was back up Arrow, across the channel, and then across Mita back to the lodge. And so we saw the sky changing, and I said, "We should probably head back." And he's like, "Yeah, I think so." So we started to head back, but there's Bob and Ned Boydum, who are also captains out here. I don't know if Bob's still alive. He was pretty old. But Ned waves us over. And of course, my partner takes the boat and goes right over there, and he says, right here. So they're casting and they're just catching northern after northern after northern. And that's why we were up there. I mean, because we can catch all the walleye we want here on Lake Erie. So going up to
Right.
Canada for the pike was what we did. And so, of course, he stops, he starts casting. I did one cast, caught one, and I said, we got to go. So he's like, all right, let's go. So we started going, and sure enough, it caught up to us. The sky was black. It starts raining. The wind kicks up because it had been pretty calm. And now we're in 3-footers. And 3-footers on that lake's pretty big, because it's not very wide. Um, so doable. But these these were 18-foot wooden hand-built boats, so pretty heavy boats.
Right.
No glide rides in them. So um, yeah, what can I say? And it was an experience, but we made it back. But Bob and Ned did not. They stopped at another camp that I think was empty at the time. That was halfway through the channel, and so they just pulled up on shore and got on a porch and waited it out. But it was nighttime. It was dark by the time they came back,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's dark up there. So I don't know how they made it back to the camp. Hopefully, maybe they had GPS. I don't know.
So is there any kind of like safety lessons or anything that you have learned from that trip from, through reflection that you implement in your your day-to-day on the water?
Yeah, when you know you got to go, you go. You don't say, you don't say one more cast. You know,
Exactly.
it is, you get your butt off the water because it can get very dangerous very fast,
Yep.
especially on Lake Erie because it's shallow. Just like Lake Winnebago, the waves are going to be very close together. And when they build and get really big, that is, I'm trying to think of
Not a
another.
not a fun time and potentially deadly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of chuckle when people tell me the story about, the pop-up storms on Lake Erie. Like all of a sudden there was a black blob on top of us. I said, that black blob been creeping up on you for the last hour and a half.
Right. Yeah, and we have apps that have, as long as you're within cell range. I know once you get north of Kelly's, it,
Yeah.
not getting
you're-
internet. Most
That
of the
always
time,
makes me so nervous out there because I rely so much on my resources just because if I'm out far, it's going to take me a little bit of time to get back.
right?
And I always get so nervous because I can't really check on those resources and, verify what's going on.
Radar scope is probably the best one I have as far as seeing what's coming in. So Radar Scope Pro gives you, as it's showing the system coming in, it'll show lightning strikes. So you can see if there's lightning in the system. If it's just
Mhm.
rain, you can stay out there. But if it's lightning, that's a thunderstorm. That's dangerous. So get your butt off the water. But
Yeah,
yeah, should have some sort, or at least have someone on. If you know there's weather coming in later in the afternoon and you're still out there, make sure somebody on shore knows that you're out there and can send you a message or a text message saying, "Hey, it's getting really close. You should get in."
right.
Always nice to
Um,
have friends watching your back.
it really is, and not just off the water, but on the water.
Yeah,
Generally, we always kind of look out for each other out there.
yeah.
I'll have to check out that radar scope. I usually use the WeatherBug app. They have
Mm.
a lightning tracker, and like the lightning tracker is the only thing that I use on that app. But it's nice. You pull it up and where that storm is or if there's lightning coming down. And it'll even send you alerts like when it gets close.
Yeah.
So you mentioned many anglers don't follow basic rules of the road on the water. What are the biggest issues you see out there?
Having that unit on the back, like I've got my unit on the back. So when you're all facing the back of the boat and watching your boards, you can look at the fish finder and your GPS if you got split screen on it. But they're not turning around to see what's ahead of them, or who's got, person coming from your starboard side is going to have the right of way. Person from the port side doesn't have the right of way, but he keeps coming. So he just And it's like, do I want to get in a fight today or do I not want to get in a fight today? Usually I'm just very passive and I'll just see what somebody's going to do and stay out of the way. Every now and then I get a bug up my butt and, I'll get on the radio and say, hey, so Blue Ranger, one of us has got the right of way and it's not you, something like that. But, and then we'll see what happens. Sometimes they don't even have the radio on. They don't know what channel to be on. So you don't know. So it's best just to not collide with people. And if you can see that, oh, sure, you've got the right of way, but look, he's already that far, just give him the room.
Right. And, there was another thing that you had mentioned on the safety side of things, which I appreciate. It's not that I'm concerned with any kind of vessels or anything like that. I'm prepared for it. I have the experience. It's the person that just got a kayak for their birthday or, it's their first or second time out. There's so many things they don't know.
Right.
So you had mentioned throwing out a reminder for wake awareness.
Mm.
So what's your message for boaters about sharing the water safely?
It's funny because Lake Erie, you've got all these big, giant boats, and those guys, they just don't care about us little boats. And I don't know how close they get to you, but they can throw a pretty big wake. Now, my boat can handle most wakes, but you're going to have people out there in that every now and then on a nice day, it's going to be a 14
Boats that don't belong.
Boats that don't belong there. Because even if it's not windy, like on a weekend, when those big boats start going back and forth, those wakes turn into a washing machine, and you've got waves doing this. And if you put a new person in a kayak and they get caught in that stuff, boop.
Yep. Yeah, that's the only time I've ever had any issues with boaters on the water is those big boats, the call them pleasure boats.
Yeah.
There was a time,
but I can't say it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the pleasure boaters, I'm sure it's 99% of them are awesome. They're awesome on the water. They try to be safe, but it's that 1% that you really want to watch for, because some of them are, malicious. I had two clients out.
More than 1%.
What's that?
I'd say it's more than 1% that are like that.
I was trying to be nice.
Nice, I know.
But I was out with two clients and I seen this boat coming from the islands heading towards Cleveland. So I told them, I'm like, hey, there's a boat coming from, I usually use the clock because depending on which direction they are, I don't have to worry about all that. I'll say you're 3 o'clock. And then I'll tell them where we're moving. So we start moving closer to shore. And when this boat seen the kayaks, it basically took a 90-degree turn towards the shoreline and got probably within a quarter mile of the shoreline to get in front of us to run real close, buzzed back out, and continued his heading towards Cleveland. And of course, like, I seen what he was doing, so I was worried about my clients. I wasn't videoing. And that's one of the reasons why my camera is all running. It's always running if I'm on the water, because I don't have time to catch your ass.
Yeah.
I'm going to save my clients, but I'm going to catch you and I'll make you famous because you're trying to be. What if it was some newbie out there, and he did that and he made it back to the marina and now he hears about, this kayaker that drowned because, some boat swamped him.
Right.
There's no need for that. It's not fun and games. This is life or death, right? But, at the end of the day, it's a big body of water. There's plenty of room for everybody, no matter what you like to use. There's surfers out there and paddle boarders and jet skiers, and we're all out there to have a good time. So, come out with love, show respect, and just enjoy this paradise we have, right?
Right. I'm looking forward to getting the season started.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about that. You said your season kicks off the end of March. So what can people expect when they book a trip with you?
What can they expect?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they can expect 6 hours. We're going to see the sunrise on the water. This time of year it may be a little later. Might have to have the frost get off the pumpkin first. Depends on the day. But yeah, we're just going to go out and have some fun. Try to catch some fish. I
And
didn't schedule anything until the end of March this time, only because I didn't know when the boat was going to be here. And like I said, I picked it up Monday, so filling it up. Probably have to finish that tomorrow morning. Waiting on my buddy to show up at about 9:30. We're gonna go launch and just drive around for 2 hours, breaking in the big motor. But that's the only plan for tomorrow. And then I've got regulars that are looking to get out. So the next nice day, they both own their own businesses, so they can pretty much come whenever. So the next
right.
nice day, I'll have them out. Um, but,
And you said you do 6 hours and I'm assuming because you do a lot of teaching and stuff, that's just 6 hours no matter what. It's not like 6 hours or your limit.
I mean, if we get done early, some of them want to get done and go have breakfast.
Right.
But I do ask them. They are allowed to stay out and keep fishing. I personally prefer that they don't do that because all you're doing is harassing these fish during a spawn.
Yep.
They don't need to have sore mouths and be tossed back.
And the release rate,
Yeah.
the survival rate for that fish, it starts going down.
Right.
One thing I like to do is I'll just, hey, you want to go target this species, go play with some catfish or some drum, or when the long-nosed gar come in, that's kind of like a bonus that I
Yeah.
pull
Well,
out at the end of the day.
really the sheephead won't be around. Not yet.
Not yet. No, water's got to get a little bit warmer.
I would like to target some perch. April, they're spawning.
Oh, yeah.
So,
So you, sorry, go ahead.
now you go.
You had mentioned you have a test drive at a Fisherman Central event in July. Can
Oh,
you tell
yeah,
us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I was talking to Kenny Grimes. He's the boat sales manager for Fisherman Central, and he mentioned that sometime in July, there's the dates to be determined. They will do a test ride for, I think, Vexus, Skeeter, and the G3s that they have at the store. So my boat will be one of them that will be test riding. So once I figure out when they tell me when those dates are, then I'll get it on the calendar and make sure to let everyone know. I also want to mention for the captains out there that Monday, March 17th, St. Patty's Day, we can get our Ohio Guides license. Can't do that until the 17th. Anytime after 17th.
And if anybody that's listening or watching that hasn't been in a Vexus, I went out with Bobby Green last year in his when Amadeo was visiting from Italy.
Bobby Green has an aircraft.
No, his new one's a Vexus.
Bobby Green?
Yeah.
What? That's news.
Last year. I think he got it last year.
No, he has the aircraft.
You're right. It's who's got the Vexus? Anyways,
there's Zach Jobs.
I think you're right. It is a Yarcraft, but somebody else just got a Vexus. So disregard that. I'm wrong.
That's a pretty awesome boat.
Yeah, I'm sure it's still an awesome boat to ride in, especially these walleye boats. Because they're handled or they're made to handle the waves and go fast. Sometimes, in my opinion, maybe too fast for me to be on board. I remember he was cruising and I'm thinking, man, I don't have all my safety gear. It's on the kayak, start getting a little nervous because you think about hitting something or launching out. But
I'm exactly the same way. I had gotten that 2023 Vexus up to 68 miles an hour, and it still had more to go, but it's like, this is too fast for me. I don't need to go that fast. So anything over 55 is just wasted gas. I like a nice cruising speed.
Right. And I've been ignoring the angler's wisdom lamp First time I noticed it back there, so I apologize, guys. Philly D, what do we got? What do we got on the Angler's Wisdom Lab? So Drama Outdoors wants to know, Jules, with all your experience as a captain, what's one piece of advice you would give to a deckhand?
Do what your captain says.
Facts.
Yeah.
He can't leave you, in the middle of the lake.
Myself. So just do the work.
Well, looks like that's the only question that we had. So, where can people follow you, and where can they find your fishing report, as well as where can they book a trip?
Okay. Well, I write my blog every night. I start out on my website, which is julswalleyefishingadventures.com. And I also then copy paste that to my business page on Facebook and my personal page. I don't like to plaster it all over, so I don't end up putting it in the Fish Huron or the Lake Erie fishing reports and all that, just because I don't want to bombard people with it. So
right.
People want to know, they know where to find me. There's been enough word of mouth. I don't think there's a time that I go to the launch in the morning or I'm in the get ready lane and somebody doesn't walk up and say, hey, thanks for writing all those reports. And, we really appreciate it. And it's like, well, thanks for reading them. I do it for them, but I also mostly do it for me. Like I said, I'm getting old and I can't remember anything. It just gets harder and harder to remember stuff. So I find writing it down. I think my dogs are getting hungry. Writing it down so that I can look back on it later. I ended up printing out a few years of fishing reports because I thought, oh, what happens if I lose the website?
The server or something, yeah.
Yeah. I meant to do the other half and get all the other ones printed out this winter.
I can show you a trick.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not during the Angler's Wisdom podcast, though.
Right.
But afterwards I can show you a trick to kind of help speed that up. Because I did the same thing. One night I was like, what happens if something happens and all that hard work just disappears?
Yeah.
So I have a backup of the whole site, just sitting waiting for me to plug it in if need be, anywhere.
So you built your own site?
Yeah. I use GoDaddy though.
I'm using Homestead.
Yeah. So when I first started, I didn't really have any experience in website building or anything like that. I just knew what I needed to do. So I just kind of, put my head down and figured it out along the way. Made a lot of mistakes. But at this point, I'm almost ready to be with just a wide open HTML or HTML option. And that's actually what I backed up the website to, was just, it's all HTML. So it'd be super easy just to duplicate it. But there's other ways to save that stuff. Okay. But final question for you. What do you hope our listeners take away from this episode and the key principles and insights behind your approach to build safer, more effective angling experience?
Are you serious?
Well, you should have known it wouldn't be easy from me.
There's too many questions in there. And as far as takeaway, we really didn't cover all that much. Takeaway, launch your boat, turn your electronics on, make sure to warm up that motor before you take off. Otherwise, you're going to be sorry. Head out, decide whether you're going left or right, and then just watch your electronics as you're passing over fish. Those fish might be close to the dock. You don't have to go that far all the time. Once you start marking fish, start fishing. If you're catching the wrong species, like all sheephead, then move. Sheephead and walleye swim together. White bass are the fun ones. If you can get down below them quick enough, you can stay out of them. But once they're dialed in on your lures,
oh yeah,
that's where the tattle come in handy.
The big ones are fun, and they taste good, but definitely could be quite annoying if you got your clients out and trying to catch a limit of walleye for them and you can't get anything but the white bass.
I guess my best advice would be do what you have confidence in. If you have confidence in casting a crawler harness and doing the countdown and retrieving it, and some people don't like to troll. They don't think it's fishing, but trolling is a lot of work. It can be a lot of fun. So do what you have confidence in. If you have confidence in running bandits, run bandits. If you have confidence in running flicker minnows, run flicker minnows.
Yep.
I find if you're running something but you don't have confidence in it, it's probably not going to work.
I mean, unless it's, like a day where it's dedicated, like, look, I don't care if I catch one fish, I'm going to go play with this or go dial in this technique. You want to practice in private. You don't want to practice when the way to the success is, extremely important. So one thing I did want to ask you, is there any kind of like pre-trip inspection or anything like that you do on your boat before you head out?
Oh, every time. I start with the winch, undo that, and walk around and do the strap, do the big motor, taking the transom saver off, turning the power on, taking the other strap off, kickers up, walk around, put the antenna up, get in the boat, and then I get all the rods in the rod holders with the baits that I want to start out with. So I don't want to get to my spot and start trolling along and then be a mile away before I get all my baits out. And as soon as I get there, I want to put my baits out. Usual stuff.
And I'm sure when you're, walking around doing all that stuff, you're glancing at the hull. And I mean, at the end of the day, if you have a major problem on your vessel, generally it'll stick out like that,
Just make sure the plug is in. That's the most important thing.
Yep.
Don't launch with the plug. Been there, done that. It's not fun.
I agree. I don't take my drain plug out because honestly, I'd have to lift my kayak up almost vertical to drain it.
Yeah.
But it stays pretty dry on the inside. But I couldn't imagine. You get out there, you park the trailer, you start going and you're like, oh shit, hurry up, go get the trailer. We're sinking.
And the person in the back says, where's this water coming from? Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, before we let you off the hook, we're going to reel you in for one last piece of angler's wisdom. But don't worry, it's a catch and release type question.
Okay.
If you had to choose one or two key pieces of angler's wisdom, whether it's something that you learned through experience or a valuable lesson passed down to you, what would it be? And why do you think they're so important for other anglers to hear?
It's really hard because everything plays a role. And sometimes, if you have, how do I put this?
No rush. It's not an easy question.
No, it's not. Say that question one more time.
If you had to choose just one or two pieces, excuse me. If you had to choose just one or two key pieces of angler's wisdom, whether it's something that you've learned through experience or a valuable lesson passed down to you, what would they be, and why do you think they're so important for other anglers to hear?
I guess we'll keep it simple and just say, stay positive. Don't let, like when the bite gets tough, don't let that get you down, and don't let social media ruin your fun. You
Yeah.
know, you post your pictures of the big fish you caught, and you got all these guys, oh, you should release that big fish. He's got all those big eggs, not knowing Lake Erie. And, that's a whole nother subject we won't get into, but
Right. Right.
stay positive. Um, share your experiences with people, and just appreciate what we have, nature and the bounty she gives us, and, the fun we have. And
That's a great answer. Too many times I've seen an angler make a mistake and it turns them in, negative. And it's not that
ruins
they're
their day.
doing anything wrong, they're just beating themselves up.
Right.
Well, think about it like this. Would a fish want to come hang out with a guy that's, not too much fun to be around? Probably not. So like our energy always attracts what we want.
Yeah.
If we're being negative, we're not gonna attract fish. So shake that stuff off. I mean, I've had clients make major mistakes, and at the end of the day, like, that's cost of doing business. Don't worry about that, man. We'll worry about it later. Get back to fishing. Like,
Yeah.
You dropped the rod down. Well, it's not the first time.
Ouch.
I've done it myself accidentally.
You tell them, well, if you drop the rod over, you're going to pay for that one.
Well, yeah, but we'll worry about the details when we get back to shore. You don't feel bad. When we get back, we'll work it out.
Right,
just get
right.
back to fishing, keep smiling. And most importantly, like you said, just remember to appreciate all of it, because it's not just about the fish. It's
Life is short.
Yeah, life is very short, and with fishing, it's the fish and the nature and the experiences, and most importantly, the camaraderie and the relationships with others. So
Right. That's exactly it.
that being said, maybe choose to, not get so upset, brush that stuff off. The guy's taking too long at the boat ramp, or, cut you off. Yeah. Don't let it ruin your day. I try to, I stay out of the way, but when I see two boaters arguing at the boat ramp and start screaming at each other, I'm like, guys, we're both out here fishing, having a good time.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It
You
gets a little tougher when it's 105 degrees out.
Well, then you have those extenuating circumstances,
Yeah.
kind of almost like, when you haven't eaten all day and you've been on the lake and you start to get really hangry. That's awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, Kat. And
Thanks for having me.
I'd really like to, now that we've gotten to know you a little bit more, maybe we'll do a second episode and do more of a deep dive on like the walleye fishing and stuff like that. Cause, that stuff, there's so many different intricate things. If we don't do it structured properly, we'll have you guys here for the next 4 hours, and
Right.
Captain Juls would probably kill me at that point.
Yeah, I do go to bed pretty early.
That's all right though. What time you get up?
Well, I usually go to bed I climb in bed at 6. I'm asleep usually by 7. I get up at 3. I just keep the same schedule all year so that when it's time to go fishing, I'm not.
That's good, because one of the hardest things for me is like switching from that winter schedule to the summer schedule, because in the summer I got to be up at 3 too.
Yeah.
In the winter time, I mean, there's not, like, when it was 96% covered with ice, there's nobody beating down my door to go kayak fishing. So, sometimes you work a little later and it throws that schedule off.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll get that planned and get it scheduled for the future.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, and everybody listening and watching at home, I appreciate you joining the show. I hope you appreciate
it.
What's that?
Did we have anyone watching?
Oh yeah. I appreciate you guys tuning in, and definitely head over to Captain Juls' website. I believe I posted it in the description. If not, I'll get it up there. There we go. And check out her resources, and consider booking a trip. Even if you know how to troll a little bit, maybe she can help you dial it into expert level. I like to use the word world class. That's what I expect. Like, I expect whatever task I'm doing, eventually the goal is to get to that world class level before I transition into learning something else. So definitely check out our resources, and we will be back next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with a very special roundtable to talk about and experience the Barbie Rod Steelhead Derby that we have coming up. And what started as a way to help an injured angler 10 years ago, basically after that first year, has turned into the way that they fund all the fishing programs for the kids in the community, through the Cleveland Fishing Fund. So it's a great time. You get out there, you chase steelhead on kids rods, which is not very easy at all. And or you can, just stop for the raffle, or stop and grab a bite to eat, or just even stop to meet your new fishing buddy, because, there's tons of anglers out there willing to share their wisdom and help you enjoy this paradise much more. So we'll see you next Thursday.
Very nice.
Thank you for joining us today on the Angler's Wisdom Podcast. We hope you got some good insight out of the show and learned something new. Don't forget to go over to ampedoutdoors.com and support the title sponsor of the show. Follow them on social media and just show them some love. And lastly, head over to LakeErieKayakFishing.com and check out all the many resources as well as opportunities to book an unforgettable Lake Erie kayak fishing adventure with yours truly. You can also get yourself a Lake Erie kayak fishing gift card, the obsessed angler in your life. And remember, fishing is life, but safety comes first. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next Thursday live on the Angler's Wisdom Podcast.
Oh, yeah! Yeah!
Oh, it's a nice one.
Yeah!